What happens when Hollywood royalty meets late-night television arrogance? You won't believe what unfolds when one of America's most respected actors faces off against a host who crossed every line imaginable. This is the explosive confrontation that had viewers' jaws on the floor and social media erupting within minutes. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe what unfolds when respect collides with reckless commentary in the most shocking, late-night television moment of the year. The tension was palpable from the moment Denzel Washington walked onto Stephen Colbert's set last night. What started as a seemingly standard promotional appearance for his latest directorial project quickly devolved into the most uncomfortable television moment viewers had witnessed in years. The veteran actor, known for his composed demeanor and thoughtful responses, found himself facing a host whose preparation seemed more focused on generating controversy than conducting meaningful conversation. Colbert opened with what appeared to be standard pleasantries, but his demeanor carried an edge that seasoned television watchers immediately recognized as trouble brewing. "Denzel, always great to have you here." Colbert began with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Though, I have to say, some of your recent comments about the film industry have been interesting." Washington, impeccably dressed and maintaining his characteristic dignity, leaned back slightly in his chair. His expression remained neutral, but those familiar with his work could detect the subtle shift in his posture, the way his shoulders squared, almost imperceptibly. "Which comments would those be, Stephen?" he asked, his voice measured and professional. This is where things began to spiral beyond the realm of typical late-night banter. Colbert, seemingly emboldened by his studio audience and perhaps overconfident in his position, decided to venture into territory that would ultimately prove catastrophic for the interview's trajectory. "Well, you've been pretty vocal about Hollywood's so-called woke agenda," Colbert said, using air quotes that immediately telegraphed his dismissive attitude. "Some might say that's rich coming from someone who's benefited so much from the industry's, let's call them, evolving standards." The studio audience fell noticeably quiet. Washington's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but his response remained controlled. "I've always spoken about the importance of merit and authentic storytelling. If that's controversial, then perhaps that says more about the current climate than about my perspective." But Colbert wasn't finished. In what would later be recognized as a catastrophic miscalculation, he pressed forward with an attack that crossed every boundary of professional courtesy and basic human decency. "Come on, Denzel. You can't seriously sit there and pretend that your success hasn't been helped along by Hollywood's guilt over its past. I mean, how many of those awards were really about your performance versus checking boxes?" The change in Washington's demeanor was immediate and unmistakable. The legendary actor's eyes hardened, and for the first time in the interview, his composure showed cracks. The studio audience collectively held their breath, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented unfold in real time. "Excuse me?" Washington's voice carried a dangerous quiet that anyone who had seen his most intense film performances would recognize. "Are you suggesting that my 30-plus years in this industry, my body of work, my dedication to the craft, that it's all been some kind of charitable gesture?" Colbert, perhaps realizing he had ventured into dangerous territory but seemingly unable to stop himself, doubled down with a comment that would seal the interview's fate. "I'm just saying, let's be honest about the landscape. The Academy, Hollywood executives, they've been trying to make up for a lot of past mistakes. It's not personal, it's just reality. What happened next will undoubtedly be replayed and analyzed for years to come." Washington stood up slowly, his movement deliberate and controlled, but carrying an unmistakable message. The camera captured every second as one of cinema's most respected figures prepared to deliver a response that would cut through Colbert's arrogance like a blade. "Let me tell you something about reality, Stephen," Washington said, his voice now carrying the full weight of decades of experience and achievement. "I've earned every role, every award, every moment of recognition through hard work, dedication, and talent. The fact that you would sit here and diminish that, suggest that my success is somehow undeserved, tells me everything I need to know about your character." The studio had fallen completely silent now, with even the production crew seeming frozen in place. Colbert, perhaps finally understanding the magnitude of his error, attempted to backtrack. "Now, Denzel, I didn't mean to suggest—" "No," Washington interrupted, his commanding presence filling the space between them. "You said exactly what you meant. You looked at a man who has dedicated his life to excellence, who has broken barriers through sheer determination and skill, and you reduced it all to some kind of political gesture. That's not just insulting to me. It's insulting to every person of color who has fought for recognition in this industry." The camera captured Colbert's face as the weight of his comments began to sink in. His usual quick wit seemed to have abandoned him entirely, leaving him scrambling for words that wouldn't come. The audience remained silent, understanding they were witnessing a master class in dignity under fire. Washington continued, his voice never rising but carrying an intensity that filled every corner of the studio. "I came here tonight to talk about my work, about stories worth telling, about the craft I love. Instead, I find myself having to defend my very existence in this industry to someone who clearly doesn't understand the difference between progress and tokenism." "Denzel, please. I think there's been a misunderstanding," Colbert stammered. But Washington was already in motion. "No misunderstanding at all," Washington replied, removing his microphone with the same deliberate precision that had characterized his entire career. "I understand perfectly. I understand that you thought you could bring me on your show and score some cheap points by questioning my legitimacy. What you fail to understand is that I've been dealing with people like you my entire career, and I'm too old and too accomplished to sit here and pretend this is acceptable." The camera followed Washington as he prepared to leave, capturing what would become one of the most powerful moments in late-night television history. His dignity remained intact, his message crystal clear, and his departure inevitable. "I've spent my career trying to elevate this industry, to tell stories that matter, to represent excellence in everything I do," Washington said, his final words to Colbert carrying the weight of profound disappointment. "Tonight, you've reminded me why that work is still so necessary." With that, Denzel Washington turned and walked off the set, leaving behind a stunned studio audience, a speechless host, and television history. The cameras captured every step of his exit, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the silence that Colbert's disgusting comments had created. As Washington disappeared through the studio doors, the magnitude of what had just transpired hung heavy in the air, leaving viewers at home and in the studio to process one of the most shocking confrontations ever captured on live television.